unsupported payments, unpresented payment vouchers, and unaccounted funds. And on to our last story, voting has begun in the United States with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris vying to become the next president. Harris has advocated for abortion rights and pledged to lower food and housing costs for working families. Trump has vowed to seal the border and has proposed tax cuts worth trillions. Americans aren't just choosing the president, they are also picking members of the U.S. Congress, and some states are voting on abortion rights. More than 82 million people voted before election today. This brings us to the end of our news summary segment, and over to you, Alfred and Grace.
Safo Bahin, thank you so much. There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. Some news just coming through. 3 teenage girls are in police custody for allegedly killing a 16-year-old Dennis Owusu Ansa. A recent basic education certificate examination as BC graduate set to start school on Thursday, November 7, 2024. According to eyewitnesses, the incident occurred on Monday night around 7:30 p.m. in Anloga, Ashanti region, following a dispute between Dennis and one of the girls while the trio was escorting a friend home. Reports indicate that during the altercation, one of the girls allegedly pulled out a knife and stabbed Dennis in the rib, causing severe bleeding. Dennis was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead upon arrival. The victim's family is devastated, with the mother and brother expressing deep shock and grief over the tragic event. They're calling for justice to be served, hoping the investigations will lead to a swift resolution and accountability. Evans also on Sunday, the deceased's brother stressed that they want the family, all they're asking for is an inquiry and then also government investigations into the matter and some assistance from government to ensure that justice is served, because the gentleman is said to have been preparing for school when this happened. So Grace, this is some sad news coming through right now from the Ashanti region. The news of the 16-year-old Dennis Olson, a recent BC graduate set to start school a day after tomorrow, has allegedly been stabbed to death by 3 teenage girls. We'll be following this story quite closely here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. What's Imani saying?
Well, Alfred, Imani this evening has revealed that most of the promises contained in the manifestos of 3 political groupings in Ghana are vague and thus not quantifiable. The political groupings are the New Patriotic Party, NPP, the National Democratic Congress, NDC, and Movement for Change. This was disclosed at an event to disseminate content of a report dubbed a manifesto earlier today. Judith Brown has more in this report.
Speaking at the event, Senior Research Associate at Imani Center for Policy and Education, Dennis Asari, explained most promises by 3 political parties, specifically the New Patriotic Party, the National Democratic Congress, and the Movement for Change, are vague and do not provide specificity.
If you look through the manifestos, the NPP made over 500 promises, the NDC made over 800 promises, and if you try to look at their feasibility and clarity of the promises, you see that most of them are non-quantifiable. That is, you cannot specifically see the kind of service or exactly what the party wants to do, and that is what we mean that a lot of the manifestos are non-quantifiable, and so they've made promises, but you can't specifically put a point to it and say that this is what the party really wants to do. And that is a challenge, because where we are, we know our current macroeconomic situation and our governance challenges, and you would expect that these 2 political parties would understand the terrain and prepare manifestos that adequately respond to our current challenges and not sloganeering.
According to him, the report categorized the various promises as quantifiable, semi-quantifiable, and non-quantifiable. However, most promises, he said, bordering especially on the economy, are non-quantifiable. Per the report, 231 out of 347 economic policies promised by the NDC are non-quantifiable. 231 out of 261 economic policies by the MPP are non-quantifiable, and 147 out of 178 economic policies from the Movement of Change are also non-quantifiable. The centre is therefore calling for more scrutiny from citizens ahead of the elections.
We see that a lot of them are non-quantifiable because, as I already mentioned, the parties don't specifically say what they want to change around these economic thematic areas. But what we also see is that there's a lot of commonalities. There are a lot of commonalities around in terms of the establishment of a fiscal council, the fiscal rule, and also things around expenditure management and all of that. Clearly, what we are saying is that none of these political party manifestos really go to the core of addressing our structural challenges, and that none of these parties clearly come up with solutions that effectively address the macroeconomic and governance challenges that we face. And so it is very important that citizens ask questions. It's very important that within the next 30 days, as we prepare to go to the polls, we ask realistic questions that actually go to the core of these issues and investigate it properly.
The exercise focused primarily on the economy, governance, energy and infrastructure, education and social services. Judith Brown, TV3.
Well, Alfred, let's stay a while longer on this and bring in Dennis Asari, who is a senior research associate at Imani Africa. Dennis, if you can hear me, good evening. Thank you for joining us on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Dennis, so let's go straight into it. What do you mean when you say most of these promises are not quantifiable?
Thank you very much. Good evening to your listeners. And the purpose of the critical analysis for us at Imani is to critically bring clarity to what political parties are proposing. These are their business plans for turning around our economy and restoring stability, as well as enhancing public accountability. And given the precarious nature of where we stand as a country, what we need is more clarity into what parties want to do and avoid sloganeering so that citizens can make informed choices. And so doing a deep dive into the manifestos of these three political parties, what you clearly see is that for most of the promises, you don't really see exactly what kind of service that the party wants to do. And what I mean by that is that with that promise, what exactly do you want to do? And so that lack of clarity and specificity of what they want to do around key sectoral issues, that is what we mean that most of the promises are not quantifiable, they are not clear. You don't get to see what really will be done if this particular manifesto is implemented. And historically, from our manifesto assessment, we realized that about 56% of manifesto promises, they almost and at all times end up in the coordinated program for social and economic development, which will now influence budget and other key development programs of the government. And so it is very important that as we develop as a country, political parties are more clearer with their plans so citizens can make informed choices. But more importantly, we are able to align what parties want to do to what really are the challenges we face as a country. That is the structural problems that need to be addressed. And so this critical analysis go in to critically examine these promises and identify which ones are very, very clear and that you can see that sense of service that the parties want to deliver, and which ones are just mere statements that really do not actually demonstrate exactly what the party wants to do.
And then if we have to talk about specifics or specific policies or promises, which ones came up for you in your report?
Okay, so if I take the NPP, a very clear, specific, or let me say, quantifiable promise that they make is that they want to cut budget expenditure by 3% of GDP, that is estimated around 30 billion. That is very clear and specific. And so if they should win elections and they are in government, citizens can clearly hold them accountable and say that you said you're going to cut public expenditure by 3%. That's equivalent to about 30 billion. That would be outsourced to the private sector to also support public finances. These are very clear promises that you can at all times monitor and hold government accountable. If you look at the case of the NDC, they also make very clear categorical statement like they're going to abolish the e-levy, COVID levy, 10% levy on veteran winnings and emissions levy. This is very clear promise that you know exactly what the party wants to do. And so this is that level of clarity that we are trying to get political parties to also do. So, for example, if you some of the promises that are not clear. In the case of the NDC, said overhaul the entire framework of foreign exchange management, including market operations, the legal framework, strengthen the role of VOG. You don't exactly see the and so what. So what really do you want to do? What really do you want to do? If you're saying you're overhauling it, what really are you going to do with that overhaul? What should we expect? So that level of clarity is what that we are trying to look for to see. Then another unclear promise by the NPP is to, for example, said require all sustainably mined small-scale gold to be sold to VOG, and then also the Minerals Income and Investment Fund to continue to work with the bank to fully entrench the gold purchase program. And so what to do, what exactly is that going to deliver? And so those are some of the lack of clarity that you don't get with the political parties manifesto, but there are instances where they really make categorical statements that you can see this is the service they want to offer, and this is what citizens can hold them accountable for.
Yannick, so how do we get the clarity and the harmony that you're looking for from these political parties? Did the report make any recommendations into these?
Yes, so I think that if you look at where we have come, and these two parties since 1992 have been in government, and so they understand our economic situations or our development challenges much more better than any other political party. And you would expect that over 30 years, they should be able to be clear with their plans, know exactly what they want to do, and also put forward proposals that actually go to address the structural problems affecting our development. And so what we are proposing is that this gives the chance for political parties to reflect on their plans and also go deeper and find out what exactly can they do within 4 years, or what is possible within 4 years. So I think that for us, what political parties can do is that as part of preparing manifestos or communicating manifestos, it is important for them to also reflect and think about the current macroeconomic as well as our development constraints and look at what is possible. And given the experience that they have or being in government before, I think they have what it takes to really know what is possible and what is impossible. For example, the current the NPP is in government. They know our macroeconomic constraints and development challenges, and so it will be very, very difficult for them to see that they can't tell specifically what they think they can do within a period of 4 years. And so I think that we want to push for more reflections and more improvement in how political parties couch their promises. And so since 2008 that we've been doing critical analysis, we've seen some improvements in terms of what people say they are going to do, what is possible and what is not possible. So over time, I'm sure that as we amplify the advocacy, we'll get to a point where political parties' business proposals are very clear, succinct, and go to the core of our structural development constraints.
Dennis, maybe my final one. How differently would this have been if we had a national development plan that these parties were committed to and their policies were aligned with?
Well, in the case of a national development plan, because political party proposals are the party's aspirations and what they think they can contribute to the nation's transformation, it is very difficult to tie them to a specific national development plan. It would have helped if they are committed to it. And you know that historically, we have never been committed to any national development plan. So even if we had a plan and they were committed to it, we would have seen much more alignment and clarity in terms of what is possible and what is not possible. But be that as it may, even in the absence of a national development plan, they have the experience, they've been in government before, and they know what is possible given the circumstances we find ourselves in. So I think that it is that commitment to making their plans clear and what is possible and what is not possible. I think that's what we are pushing for advocacy. Just also because citizens can clearly see through these promises or the lofty promises and be able to make informed choices. That is what we are interested in.
All right, Dennis, thank you for sharing those insights with us. Dennis Asare is a senior research associate at Imani Africa.
Well, you're still live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 and also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Let's still stay a bit further on matters of the economy, accountability, and matters arising grace as Imani has raised. The latest Auditor General's report has identified gaping holes in the disbursement of funds to the school feeding secretariat, hampering the provision of meals to basic schools. The school feeding program, since its rollout, provides a hot meal a day to basic school pupils across the country. The quality and consistency of food provided in recent years, however, has hit a snag with continuous delay in release of funds and intermittent strikes by school feeding caterers. Currently, a cross-section of caterers are not cooking due to arrears owed them, a situation the Auditor General is revealing has all to do with the lack of release of funds. Now, we're going to walk you through the latest report on the District Assembly's Common Fund in a bit. If you go on our Facebook page right now, follow me every step of the way. According to the Auditor General's report, the non-release of school feeding funds from 226 million cedis earmarked for the 2021 budgetary period was not released. 100 million cedis was released just as of May 2023. Now, 166 million cedis is outstanding as we speak. Also, as a result of the non-payment, there's been irregularity in the disbursement of these funds, negatively affecting smooth operation of the Ghana School Feeding Program and the livelihood of the caterers also involved. And what's been happening is that these caterers pre-finance the cooking of these meals for the children or the pupils, and that ends up, as it were, being their cost when it is not paid. Also, the Gender Ministry has encumbered outstanding 166 plus million cedis to be utilized to contract kitchens in all schools across the country. In fact, that's one thing as well that we're looking at quite closely and how things are playing out. Aside from that, the 2023 Auditor General's report has also revealed that metropolitan and municipal district assemblies continue to record irregularities in the operations and management of the district assembly's common fund. According to the Auditor General's report, it said the irregularities included unsupported payments, unpresented payments, vouchers, unaccounted for funds, misapplication of funds, overutilization of common fund on administrative expenditure, payment of judgment debts, abandoned delayed projects, completed projects not put to use, overpayment for work done, unremitted taxes, amongst others. Now, Grace, if you look at it, the report also shows that in 2023, the total irregularities dropped to 49 million cedis, as against 53 million cedis in 2022. That's just about some 3 million cedis reduction. And we're talking about monies that are unaccounted for, that's gone. Now, in respect to specific areas such as cash irregularities, the reported amount of money lost to cash irregularities is over 11 million cedis, as against some 88 assemblies that were in fact fingered for this. Contract irregularities were made up of delays and abandoned projects, completed projects not put to use as well. Now, it also recommended to the assemblies to take necessary action and prioritize the completion of these ongoing projects. But let's stay a bit further on this. Dr. Richard Fiadomo is the chair of the Chamber of Local Governance, is joining us. Dr. Fiadomo, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Yeah, good evening. I'm doing for charity.
I mean, I look at least over the last 8 years, this is a consistent story with the Auditor General's report and the irregularities that have always been identified over the years with the MMDAs, is it not?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that particularly the current Common Fund Administrator, ever since he took office in 2017 till date, has run the Common Fund as if it is her sole proprietorship entity, and to the extent that she will not respect the constitutional provisions that ask her as the Common Fund Administrator to administer funds and distribute such funds to the MMDAs based on a formula and guidelines as approved by Parliament. Over the period, she has turned the administration or the secretariat into a procurement entity. And what she does is that when monies are supposed to be released to assemblies to build their own courts, to build their own schools, to build their own police stations, she will not release the money to the assembly. Then she will sit in Accra and then go into single source procurement, which she's not having even the approval of the PPA. So that is why we are seeing all that we are seeing, to the extent that contract irregularities are running into millions of Ghana cedis. And that is what the Auditor General has pointed out. And she's just engaged in outright illegality as far as her mandate as an administrator to administer and distribute funds to the assemblies are concerned.
In this case, you are talking about Irene Natoshi?
Exactly so. And not too long ago, we all heard about the so-called drip equipment, where Irene Natoshi came out when the president was launching the drip on the 31st of July this year and said that the GACF was the sole funder for the drip. And the question you ask yourself, who gave you that authority to be appropriating, if you like, for this purpose of this interview, misappropriating the funds of the GACF to now to be making procurement for and on behalf of the assemblies? These are illegalities. And I can tell you, very soon, we have come out to see that the drip equipment, the unit cost was inflated over 150 to 200%. And very soon, the Auditor General, I'm sure next year, will come out with their findings on this case. So clearly, he's engaged in a lot of illegality, in a lot of corrupt actions, because that is not her mandate at all. Her sole mandate is to administer and distribute funds based on Parliament formula to be approved and guidelines. I'm even surprised that Parliament sits down to allow the DSDF administrator to be acting this way. Because if you look at the same Act 936, the DSCF administrator is supposed to be reporting to Parliament. And they've sat now for all these infractions and illegalities to go on for 6 to 7 years. And I think that Parliament must also up their game, because the oversight over the DSCF, for me, is almost zero.
I see, and you talk about the functions of the National Assembly, that's the Secretariat, and the administrative aspect of that particular function. Does that include what you've just referenced Irene Natoshi to be doing, as in putting certain measures in place to, as it were, have the Secretariat take charge of certain responsibilities so as to keep an oversight role on how those monies are spent? Is that outside of the mandate of the Secretariat?
Yeah, thank you very much. The Secretariat, Natoshi, as administrator, her job is just simple. Common fund, 5%. Unfortunately, this government has even not dealt well with the common fund. They've even capped the common fund from 7.5 to 5%. But let's leave that one. When that 5% goes into the consolidated fund, the finance minister is supposed to release that 5% into the DACF account. When the money hits the account, the administrator is not supposed to touch the money. The administrator is supposed to go with a formula as to how she's going to distribute the funds to the 361 MMDs. It goes to Parliament. Parliament looks at the formula, and the Parliament approves the formula with a guideline. So the administrator doesn't have the power to procure for and on behalf of the MMDs. The administrator doesn't have the power to even pay judgment debt. Is that what the common fund? The common fund is meant for development. So if an assembly has gone out, engaged in an illegality, and there's a judgment debt against a particular assembly, on what basis is the common fund administrator using the DACF to pay for judgment debt? Is that part of the formula that was approved by Parliament? I do not think that is the issue. So for me, I think that she has become a law unto herself, and she's appropriating, or if you like, misappropriating the DACF anyhow she likes. Because if that is not the case, then I do not see why she should be engaging in the kind of illegality she has been engaging over the 7 to 8 years that she has been in office. So it is obvious that she's running the DACF as a sole proprietorship entity, so whatever she likes, she will do. Because if you look at the act very well and you look at her mandate, we should not be here today talking about cash irregularities. The cash is supposed to be transferred directly to the assemblies. So if you transfer money to the assemblies, why would the Auditor General cite you for cash irregularities. If you give the money to the assemblies to award their own contract, why would the Auditor General be citing you for contract irregularities? If you do not engage in procurement, which the DATF is not a procurement entity for Christ's sake. So they cannot even be engaging in any procurement for even the DATF itself, let alone doing for on behalf of the assembly. So if you don't engage in procurement, why will the Auditor General cite you for procurement irregularities and the issues about payment of judgment there? So for me, I think that she's a law unto her own, but it is just a matter of time that she will be called to account for some of the illegalities that she's perpetrating.
And Dr. Fiadimo, quickly, and before I let you go, I see every year, and I have all the 6 years report and over the last 6 years plus this 7th one before me right now, and every year the Auditor General makes recommendations as to what can be done to address the irregularities identified. But every year the same irregularities are identified, they keep repeating themselves over the period. So apart from asking persons who have been caught in misapplying this is Assembly's funds to refund them, what other deterrent measure can be put in place?
Oh, for me, I think that number one, Parliament has been sleeping on its oversight as far as the DATF is concerned. And it is also the case that if you want to backtrack and look at the Auditor General's report on the DATF administrator during the John Mahama administration, you will not see some of these things. You will not see any issue of procurement. You will not see any issue of contract because that was not being done. And all these infractions have been repeated over the years, and she continues to do them. And if you look at the figures, every year the figure is even increasing. And to the extent that, that's why I've said that the drip, next year, maybe if the opportunity is there, you and I will be having a discussion to see the extent to which the common fund has been blatantly abused, even in this drip case. So now, as I speak to you, 4 quarters entering into 5 quarters, the assemblies have not been given their share of the fund. And she sits at the Common Fund Administrator's Office Secretariat, and she is the one dictating as to how the assembly should even use their fund. If I can tell you, if you can talk to some chief executives through the back door, they will tell you what the administrator is doing to them, and it's not allowing the assemblies to plan. If you also look at it very well, you will see that the highest that she has been paying to the assemblies in terms of the 100% is around 79%. You get 65%. That is what she sends even to the assemblies as and when she decides to release money to the assembly. She will not give them the full complement, and then she keeps some of the monies because assembly is building a school. So she will keep the money and go and procure chairs for the school. The assembly wants to build a court. She will pay the money and build the court, and we know that it is only one contractor that does all the ACS projects in this country under single source, even as and when she will not even advertise for other contractors to take part in. It's only one contractor that does GACF contract and other things. So it is just a matter of time. I believe that if there is a change in government come December 7, some of these things will come to the fore, and if she has to be prosecuted for some of the infractions that we are seeing in the Auditor General, because they are glaring. These are the Auditor General's report and not from even any CSO. So you cannot dispute what the Auditor General has stated, and you and I are having a conversation on now.
We'll see how things play out. Thank you very much, Dr. Fiadimo. Appreciate you. Dr. Richard Fiadimo is president for the Chamber for Local Governance, joining us here on Hot Edition. We're also live on KESME 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Join us with your thoughts and let's get into it. And let's stay a bit further on this particular Auditor General's report, because it has also identified gaping holes in the disbursement of funds to the School Feeding Secretariat, hampering the provision of meals to basic school pupils. Dr. Peter Pate-Anti is Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies. I thank you so much for your time, Doc. Now, this certainly wouldn't come as a surprise to you, because I know for you as an institution, you have done quite some work as well with the non-disbursements of funds to these caterers under the school feeding program that's hampering their work. But to the extent that this keeps coming up every year, it's captured in this Auditor General's report every year, what does that tell you?
Thank you very much, and good evening to you, Alfred, and your listeners. It simply means that we are not committed to the cause of feeding our kids in our schools. It simply means that we are not interested in efficiency, we are not interested in accountability, and that we are content. I mean, we are satisfied with the current status quo and would want to remain like that. I think that it's time that some of us don't even read some of these Auditor General's reports, because it's like the activities keep repeating itself. People continue to undertake these activities, and there's no punishment meted out to them. We all know that the caterers in the country have been complaining about their money. Okay, but if there have been instances whereby there are lapses in disbursement, whereby these monies that are earmarked or allocated for the school feeding secretariat does not get to the secretariat, then it means that the whole system is not committed to ensuring that the school feeding program is successful. And whatever decision that needs to be taken to ensure that whoever is responsible is dealt with accordingly.
I see, and to the extent that even the funds allocated to the caterers are not enough, and I think it still stands as 1 cedi 50 pesos per child, right? For
yes,
1 cedi 50 pesos.
In the private schools, we are paying 15 cedis, 20 cedis, and so on to feed our wards. In the public schools, that is the amount that we are paying. And we were told recently that the kids are giving nutritious food and all those things. Meanwhile, this is what is happening. The money is not enough. The food is not good. Even the small disbursement that is supposed to go is not going. It means that the whole school feeding system that we embraced under ex-President Kufuor, we have not been able to maintain the system, and it has collapsed in our hands. But we are just looking on helplessly.
And that's the troubling aspect of things. I mean, come to think of it, what food really can 1 cedi 50 pesos be used to prepare at a time like this? and if you talk about nutritious meal, I don't know. But you've done some research on this. What kind of food are they cooking with 1 cedi 50 pesos per child? Really?
Of course, you know that sometimes the stew looks like soup or water. There's no protein in it. If it is jollof, it's so white like anything that I can mention. The food is the food that you would not want to give your kids in the house. It's that kind of food that, excuse me to say, you wouldn't want to even give to somebody that, I mean, your enemy. It's not a food that is nutritious enough to keep the child, build the child emotionally and psychologically, mentally, to be able to study as the one of the basic aims of the policy work. So we are just doing something to represent something. We are not paying the kids enough, and because this thing has turned into something like a political gift to party women organizers, it's even become difficult for them to even push for what is due there, because when they do that, they are told that they are making their government unpopular. So I think that we should now revamp. I mean, we should have a complete overhaul of the school feeding program and provide proper contracts that spells out what the school feeding caterers, the kind of food that they are supposed to provide. Then the caterers can also demand the corresponding, amount that would help them provide that kind. So that kind of accountability can be in place. But if you are doing it because our party is in power, it's our women's organizer who go for the contract and she's sharing it among the other women in the constituency, it becomes difficult for you to hold these people accountable, because it becomes a party thing, and they will want to cover some of these things up and paint their party in a good light, because anything that comes out negatively will affect their party's fortunes.
Dr. Ante, appreciate you on this. Thank you so much for your insight on this matter. Dr. Peter Party Ante, Executive of the Institute for Education Studies. There 1 cedi 50 pesos used to feed a child under the school feeding program. Grace, 1 cedi 50 pesos.
1 cedi 50 pesos. Alfred, how much is an egg?
Egg is,
you know,
is 4 cedis, 5 cedis now.
I remember the last time I did a story on this, I asked a caterer, so what source of protein do they give to the children? Because obviously it doesn't come with a fish or egg or anything. And they tell me, oh, we put fish powder in the stew.
Fish powder?
Powder, yes.
So that the children can taste something that...
Some fish in the stew, but you can't find like a piece of fish or even an egg on the food.
Powder.
And this budget is so unrealistic, Alfred.
And I heard them say that it's a nutritious meals that they are...
It's from what the eye can see, you cannot describe that food.
And the nose can smell.
And the tongue can taste. You cannot describe that food as a nutritious meal.
Stanley Blair visited some of the schools in the hard-to-reach communities, and this is what he found.
Was an integral part of the educational reform under former President John Agyekum Kufuor's administration in 2005. The project was designed to provide food to pupils in lower primary levels to improve enrollment and retention. Although the program has been expanded to cover more schools and pupils, especially in rural communities, the targets are not being achieved in some beneficiary schools. Caterers contracted by the School Feeding Secretariat under the auspices of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection to cook for the pupils do not fulfill their part of the engagement, resulting in mass absenteeism in some beneficiary schools. The situation is common in the 5 regions of the north. The Kandigi Primary School in the East District of the Upper West region is one of such schools. The school's enrollment shot up from 69 to 160 in a year after it was included in the school feeding program. Now, enrollment has declined to less than 30 because the feeding has been irregular.
When I came, I met the 69 people. So they complained that there wasn't any food for the children. I wrote to the district assembly if they could help me get school feeding. So fortunately, I was able to acquire that for them. So when I acquired the feeding, they started feeding and the enrollment started increasing. But the cook, the caterer, she was the problem, another challenge. So whenever she stopped cooking, you see the people drop out of school.
I requested to speak to the caterer, but the teachers claim she's not known to them. Pupils in schools in the Kwandai district of the northern region, benefiting from the school feeding program, are facing similar challenges. At the Blajai and Leseni primary schools, pupils are compelled to bring water and firewood to school before food is cooked and served to them. On some occasions, food is not prepared for the pupils for weeks. But the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Protection, Dakwa Newman, during an engagement with journalists at the Meet the Press series, indicated that a new regime of caterers verification for cooking days is now in place.
In collecting data, in ensuring that people cooked or they didn't cook, everything is going to be on the MIS, that system. And it's going to give us real-time updates. We'll know today the number of caterers who cooked. We don't have to wait till the end of the term to determine, because it was paperwork, they now have to put everything together, send it to the region, send it to national, they validate. So it smoothens the process, it streamlines the process for everybody.
Meanwhile, some rural public basic schools in the Nakpanduri, Bunkrugu, Jonyo, Triponi, Saboba, Gushegu and Karaga districts that have strived to improve their enrollment are now recording steep declines, partly due to the non-availability of the feeding program. Teachers in these schools are constantly disturbed about the trend.
Last time, when the food program was there, majority of them will come, the children, a lot. And as it is not there, they are not there.
Pupils who come to school on empty stomachs are forced to retreat during contact hours.
And that's the harsh reality of the Ghana School Feeding Program and what children are going through across the country. We're still live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 in Y and beyond. Some 17 minutes to the top of the hour, 6 p.m. And this is where we spread our tentacles beyond the borders of Ghana, getting to the United States, Grace?
We take our passports, Alfred, and fly all the way to the USA.
Indeed.
Because we all know that the USA is going to the polls. They are voting to elect a new president between Kamala Harris and then former President Donald Trump. And my colleague Dela Michelle is joining us for a conversation. Dela, thank you for joining us. We have been speaking with you since last week, since the polls intensified for the election. Update us. What do we know now?
Well, Grace, I'm coming to you live from the Gaithersburg High School here in Maryland, where is one of the polling centers. You can see that it's not really busy behind me, which is a lie, because I'm told that when you go inside, it can take you a couple of minutes, even up to an hour or two before you cast your vote. But I have one of the voters here, a citizen here, who, of course, she doesn't want to show her face, but I'm going to engage her briefly and find out from her what are the main issues that stood out for her in this year's elections. You're live on 3FM 92.7 in Ghana. But I want to ask you, what stood out for you this time around in this year's election? So there's been a lot of, concerns about how close or tight this election is. Does it make you worried? It makes me worry a lot. But what are your plans after here? How do you intend to watch the rest of the elections? I try to focus as much as I can. I'm not really in a position to watch TV, but I'll be listening. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us. So that's one of the people here in Maryland. She just cast her vote, and of course, she mentioned what her main issue was. Grace, these are some of the issues that have taken center stage in this year's election. The fact that Trump is saying there's going to be a massive deportation. So, of course, narrowing down to immigration-related issues, people are really concerned about it. You heard about reproductive rights. Women are really looking forward to the candidate, that's Kamala Harris, what she's going to do once she comes into power with regard to that. I would say if I can get a few more people, but this place is not the typical, busy polling centers that we usually use or we're usually known to, especially when we are covering elections in Ghana. But in the morning, I would say that there was quite a queue in here. Even though it looks pretty calm, you see that there are some men in blue. The laws of this polling center is that you cannot come into the polling station with any, attire or outfit that is representing where you stand. So in case you have maybe a waltz and Kamala hat, you cannot come inside there with that. In case you have a Republican outfit, you cannot come in there with that. And I've also seen first-time voters, Grace. They have just been, excited that they've had the opportunity to cast their vote this year. Because once you vote, there's a little sticker that you receive that says, I voted in Maryland. And I see people taking pictures with it, some doing a live video as they're coming out. So even though people are worried, as you heard one of the citizens say, there's still some sense of calmness around this area.
Then so from your readings and all the rounds that you have made, it might be too early to say who is likely to lead the polls. But from what people tell you, what does it look like? The die is falling.
Let me tell you what people are telling me, Chris. Everybody is scared because this election is pretty. So we are seeing the results in many areas like Wisconsin, like Michigan, like Pennsylvania. That is a tie between Kamala and Trump. We are seeing places like North Carolina where Trump is leading just a few, points. Actually, he's leading like by 1%. So in some places by 1.2%. So people want to see a landslide win for their candidate of choice, that's Kamala Harris, because they say that, listen, let's be very honest. That is what people are telling me here. It's not like we have the best of options, but comparing the two candidates, let's go for one that is lesser evil, if you understand what I'm trying to say. Because people are concerned, about what is going to happen if Trump should be in the next 4 years. People are also worried what's happening, especially with the Biden administration. They haven't seen any drastic change in the last 4 years. They don't know if things are going to be better in the next 4 years if a Democrat candidate should win, but they are hoping that it is not chaos. They want decorum in the U.S. They want some sense of urgency and decency in the United States. But there's one gentleman here, I think he's smiling towards me. If I can engage you briefly, say, this one says, unfortunately, you know what to speak, please.
Thank you for bringing us that update. We know it is election night is tonight, and by tomorrow morning, the results will start trickling in, and we'll see who is taking what, who becomes the next president of the U.S. Is it Trump or it's going to be Vice President Kamala Harris? We'll see how it goes. We'll definitely come back to you for updates on that. Thank you for speaking to us. Della Michelle is my colleague, bringing us up to speed on the U.S. elections currently ongoing. Back in the country, let's engage Nana Yayabuwa, who is an affiliate of the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, Lesia at the University of Ghana. Nana, thank you so much for joining us tonight. The U.S. is going to the polls, and it looks like, the entire world is looking at the U.S. What is standing out for you in this election?
Well, good evening to your listeners, and thank you for having me on this program. I think so far it's been an interesting journey. We've seen the various developments that have emerged within the course of this few months. So far, we've seen the policies of acrimony, the policies of animosity, and the rhetoric that have emerged from one of the presidential candidates' camp, and how that is fueling tensions. At least we've had one of the presidential candidates who is beginning to lay foundation for disputing the election result. We are looking forward to the outcome of the elections. And then we are also trying to find out what the voter turnout will be like. Because at the end of the day, it falls down to how many of Republicans or Democrats move out of their homes and vote. Voter turnout is important. Forget about undecided, the independent voters. At the end of the day, those that will go out to vote will determine the outcome of the elections. We know the early votes have ended. Now they are doing the independent, voting.
Yeah.
I think that for the swing states, Nevada and Arizona can immediately start counting their early votes, but state laws prevent ratifiers from doing it until the in-person votes start. If this election and the polls have been anything to go by, what we are picking is that, like you said, it's too close to call as to who will be the winner, and we probably have to wait for the next days to see a clear pattern, emerge. But one thing that I must also point out is that the polls that have emerged so far are national polls. These are polls taking the opinions of voters of the United States. And you and I know that the United States doesn't touch the simple majority. It comes down to the electoral college.
Yeah.
And even the electoral college, you are not talking about the 43 states. It comes down to the 7 states because the 43 states are safe states. They are either for Republicans or Democrats. In fact, there are 36 states in America that haven't changed their voting pattern for so many years. It is the key battleground state that politically realign either with Trump in 2016 or with Biden in 2020. And so these are the key battleground states that we are looking out for. One thing that I must also add is that, look, for every political election, there is a possibility for a new swing state to emerge. Until 2016, Florida, for instance, right, was a swing state until Trump, took it. And since then, Florida has been a red state throughout. So let's see whether we are going to have another state that is going to politically realign itself and vote and see the emergence of voting in opposite direction. Maybe Iowa may take on that character, but we have to wait to see what will happen.
When you look at the two main issues that have been at play since the polls intensified, you look at reproductive rights for women and then immigrant issues also for men. These are not someone would say the basic bread and butter issues that dominates elections, even when we bring it to Africa. Why is the dynamics different comparing the U.S. and probably, let's say, Ghana?
Could you your question again?
So I was saying that when you look at the two issues that have been at play since this election, you look at reproductive rights for women and then the immigration rights that Donald Trump talked about. These are not the basic bread and butter issues that dominate elections when you even come to Africa or Ghana. Why is the dynamics different between these two countries?
Well, if I understand your question, I think that the political nuances, the political development in the U.S. dictating the very pressing issues that is informing ordinary Americans as to how to vote. And you mentioned reproductive rights, you mentioned immigration, but I think the economy is also one important indicator as to how people are voting. And whichever way you look at it, my understanding is that you cannot dissociate Kamala Harris from the policies of President Biden, especially those that are considered bad policies and it's economically biting as far as the economy is concerned. You can look at reproductive rights and probably say that it is inherent to the benefits of the Democrats because it appears Kamala Harris is the one that is championing this whole idea of women's reproductive rights.
Yeah.
And it was Trump's presidency and the Supreme Court did that lineup that gave them the capacity to overturn what you call the Roe v. Wade, the Roe versus Wade, in which abortion rights were rather taken from individuals and rather given to the states to regulate. So these are very present issues that are out there. And you know, there is a very significant constituent of American voters called the suburban women. These are very influential middle-class educated women. And I'm not very likely to vote for President Trump, especially when their rights to regulate their reproductive rights have been taken away from them and given to states. So they are seeking to bite them back. These are women in search of liberation for their bodies and are not happy with somebody else telling them what to do
with their bodies.
Immigration is a very important element. And the Biden administration has been very abysmal with how it has dealt with immigration over the time. In fact, Kamala Harris was put in charge of immigration, and that's how the Republicans have given her a name tag called the Border Czar. And yet, the country has nothing to show in terms of dealing with, the influx of immigrants. But I think these are issues that are very critical, and the ordinary American is interested in what goes into their stomach. I myself have returned from the States a few months ago, and we've seen that even though inflation has dropped under the Biden administration, the basic price of groceries are skyrocketing, and people are feeling the pinch of this economy. And this is what will inform the election outcome. All
right. Now, my final one to you is the December polls here in Ghana are just some 5 or 4 weeks away. What lessons should we be drawing from the U.S. elections?
Right. I think 2 or 3 indicators. One of them, the United States is a beacon of democracy. It's busted in glory. It's bashing in glory because of what's the so-called idea of democracy. But look at what happened in January at the Capitol Hill. A country that has been practicing democracy for 200 years, as a certain president who decided not to accept a certified, credible election outcome and nearly turned the country into a political impasse, turning people against the capital because of the policies of acrimony, because of the policies of animosity, and because of the rhetorics. We are going to have our own election some few weeks ahead of us. And I would admonish our leaders to tone down on the rhetoric, to be very mindful of what they tell their supporters, so that it doesn't flow what you call post-election conflict. We must educate. The civic education must go down well with our people for them to understand that it is not the end of the world if a political, presidential candidate loses an election. And then whoever wins should also be mindful of how they go about their celebration. This is something that we can take from them. And probably how the American system has solid institutions to withstand some of these shocks as and when they occur. What mechanisms are we also putting in place so that in case of any eventuality, we are able to arrest and ensure that we have, at the end of the day, a free, fair, and transparent, elections going forward.
All right, Nana, thank you for talking to us. Nana Agyemang is an affiliate of the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, let's here at the University of Ghana. Stay with us, your Election Command Center, because we don't only bring you election updates here in Ghana, but we do it elsewhere, just as we're bringing you updates on the U.S. elections. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Time now for some business news with Michael Ogbedu.
Today, we thank you very much for your invaluable service to this great company, and we wish you well on your retirement.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
happy retirement, Lay.
Thank you very much.
So are you staying or you are going back to Ghana?
I'm going back home, of course.
Wow. You really built?
I've got a home at Lakeside Estate.
Really?
Lakeside Hills is a dream come true, a community designed for all stages of life. Whether you're a growing family needing more space, a young professional looking for convenience, or someone seeking a peaceful retirement, Lakeside Hills has it all. With 2, 3, and 4 bedroom homes, there's something for everyone.
That's impressive. Exactly what I'm looking for. I have to start saving towards this.
See you back home.
Lakeside Hills, it's not just a place to live, it's a place to thrive.
And hello there, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition with me, Michael Obudu. Coming up tonight, Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA, criticizes Bank of Ghana's gold coin as a dollar alternative. We'll bring you details of the latest economic outlook report. My name is Michael Obudu. Please stay tuned. And thank you so much for your time. Straight into our top story. And the Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA, has raised concerns about the Bank of Ghana's recent plans to introduce the Ghana coin as a means to manage liquidity and serve as a store of value alternative to the dollar. The think tank questions the bank's rationale, arguing that the initiative sidesteps core economic issues that drive demand for dollars, including inflation, a persistently weak cedi, and the lack of confidence in the economy. My colleague Bismarck Awusa has details of the IEA latest economic outlook report.
Technology hub.
We'll bring you that report shortly. By the way, from that, government much touted digital youth hub being constructed at the University of Ghana is almost completed. That's according to the Minister of Communications and Digitalization, Esla Osu-Ekufu. The hub, which will serve as an innovative space for young tech entrepreneurs in the country to interact, collaborate, start up and build sustainable technology-based businesses, is a collaboration between the University of Ghana and the Ministries of Finance and Communication and Digitalization.
We've started with a digital technology hub at the University of Ghana. It's near completion, but the students are very, very excited, and you should go see it. That has also been done in the last 6 months, and construction is at 80% completion already. It's also building the largest auditorium on the University of Ghana campus, and arguably in the whole of Accra, right there in the University of Ghana campus. We've spoken to the university authorities, and they are making land available for the big tech companies who also want to utilize the university environment and the sandbox environment being created to test their own solutions in there. And so I was delighted when, was it Tech Mahindra or Radisys indicated that, and Nokia also indicated that they want to set up an innovation hub here. So we're going to facilitate that and ensure that that is also done to enable our young men and women to try their hands out at innovative solutions.
So that was Minister of Communications and Digitalization, Esla Osu-Ekufu. Now, the pressure on the Ghana cedi continues as the local currency lost 3.95% against the US dollar in October 2024, taking its year-to-date depreciation to nearly 29%. It is coming after the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison's statement that the cedi will soon post gains against the American greenback. Last week, the local unit also lost 1.5% in value against the British pound and 0.69% against the euro. Despite the Bank of Ghana's effort to stabilize the currency by auctioning $20 million to the bulk oil distributors and selling over $81 million during the 7-day forward auction, these interventions did little to address the heightened demand. The cedi began the week on November 4, 2024, selling at 17.1 cedi to $1 on the retail market. On that note, that'll be all for the business segment here on Hot Edition. For more business stories, please check out our website at 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obudu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe.
Send us money to take care of your nephews. Now they are back from school.
Last month, I sent you guys money. What happened to all that?
The challenges with the free SHS has taken all the money. I send the boys money weekly to buy food to eat because of the feeding challenges confronting their school. Aside that, they are back in the house on vacation due to the double track traffic light system. And now I have to look for money to enroll them in private.
The most comprehensive election coverage.
Top-notch presenters and well-versed analysts.
Dedicated reporters and correspondents in every nook and cranny across the country.
All the action, every incident reported. All the big stories covered.
All facts cross-checked. Every figure verified.
Every vote monitored and accounted for.
Exactly. That is why you must tell your friends to vote for the Mahama-led NDC come December 7th.
Wafa, no shaking cry. We have already advised ourselves. Who doesn't want quality?
Vote for change. Vote for John Mahama and the NDC. Intimi kwami pampo penye market ya enye insuta na yesta ibisano Anton Swa bobu esan se me packet ye miensape mini thank you emum dum fo bia dum me wa bombo sia se me nkope tank nto na dien tank na meta min high Syntex tank dien na echepa Syntex tank benzu ne kita warranty bebre Syntex tank na face so unim my favorite color no tank ben ne bit me ya mamie Syntex tank obia se Syntex tank case close Tribel tank hwede atwero eye SINTEX Syntex tank na enye na bebie Syntex tank eye strong eye tough.
Please, how much is the rice? It depends on size, no. 5 kilogram, no. And no, for 120 Ghana cedis.
120 Ghana cedis?
Ayo, right now, the importers are complaining about the high dollar rates, taxes, and import duties. So they have also increased prices. So you can ask around. But this same bag was 25 Ghana cedis in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. You see, elections have consequences. Today, when you complain, government says Russia and Ukraine war.
And you are forgetting COVID-19.
One bag of cement in John Dramani Mahama's time, 2016, was 24 cedis. But now it has crossed 100 Ghana cedis under the NPP. The dollar was 4 cedis under Mahama. But today, it is 16 Ghana cedis under the watch of Mr. Economic Fundamentals. These are the people who told us that Yetisikaso and accommodate.
Hey, Erade, you are too ababoni. All the sweet promises have turned out to be 419.
Madam, we are all suffering. We really need a tried and tested, experienced and visionary leader who can reset our country and lead us to build the Ghana we all want.
Vote for change. Vote for John Dramani Mahama and the NDC.
All right.
Honestly, the cost of dialysis is at
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We start here from Ghana, where the locker room bonus initiative introduced by BetPower to benefit Ghana Premier League players from the 2022-2023 season has been extended for the 2024-2025 campaign. Players in Match J squads are set to receive 400 Ghana cedis each, the same figure as last season, as cash payment for every match their team wins. 3 technical members have have also been added to the package. The former Ghana Premier League title sponsor has also extended the bonus to the Women's FA Cup, with female footballers set to receive the same amount each for winning a game. The initiative for the women is set to take effect from the round of 16 stage. Let's now hear from Intudi Muleyo Katuza, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of BetPower, who spoke earlier at a press conference today.
We will continue to sponsor the Premier League men, and we have decided to extend that sponsorship not only to men but also to women. Undisclosed amounts. GFA is receiving a commission to make it happen. They are receiving a commission based on conditions that we have set and they have agreed. For GFA to receive their commission at the end of each of the games must happen on time. For GFA to receive their commission at the end of each game, we should have at least 24 or 48 hours before the list of the squad so we can make payment on time.
And so that's the latest when it comes to the Ghana Premier League and then incentives for all the clubs involved. But there's Champions League action later tonight. In fact, some games have already started. We'll go through that. But before that, let's hear from Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola, who says that his side would have to accept a more challenging season as they cope with numerous injuries that have made it harder to repeat the success of recent years. Now, this came from Guardiola ahead of their Champions League game against Sporting later tonight.
I don't know. I never think before the game we're going to win 4 or 5. Never. So it's a different game. There was knockout stage. Is a different statement, and our momentum for the lack of many players completely different than was in that time. It's different competition. We lost 1 game. And yeah, we'll have to come back to winning games, of course, but we are in early November, so many things is going to happen.
So that was Pep Guardiola ahead of his side's Champions League game later tonight against Sporting CP. That will be Ruben Amorim's one of his final games, as he's also set to take charge of Manchester United as the new boss after the November international break. But Liverpool will also be in action as they welcome their former player Xabi Alonso, who this time would be in the opposite dugout and would be handling Bayern Leverkusen ahead of the game. And Slot has been praising Mohamed Salah and challenging him to become one of the best in the world. Salah moved into outright 8th on the all-time Premier League goal scorers list with a stunning trademark finish against Brighton on Saturday. It was his 164th goal in his Premier League career.
There's no reason at the moment to think that he is dropping in terms of level. That's not what you look at his numbers, and that's also not what you see when you see him play. So but I don't know how to say this in English, but I cannot tell you how the future will look like. So for some players, they can. Cristiano Ronaldo, what age is he at the moment? He's still doing really well. Messi is still incredible. So. But there were also players that, like me, that weren't as good anymore when they were 33. Not that I was so good when I was 26, but I regressed a bit earlier than Ronaldo and Messi.
So the challenge remains for Mohamed Salah, who is in his mid-30s, approaching mid-30s, 33 currently at Liverpool, and his contract is set to expire at the end of the season. We'll see how that develops. But Liverpool would now be focusing on their game later tonight when they face Bayer Leverkusen. Real Madrid in action against AC Milan in what should be the fixture of the night. Sporting CP host Manchester City. Dortmund are home to Sturm Graz. Celtic face RB Leipzig. Monaco travel to Italy to face Bologna. And then there's the 2 matches that have already started. PSV currently lead Girona by 1-0. And then Slovan Bratislava are also being held to a 1-0 draw by Dinamo Zagreb. That's how we wrap up the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM. My name is Orekwa Mpofo.
election coverage.
Top-notch presenters and well-versed analysts.
Dedicated reporters and correspondents in every nook and cranny across the country.
All the action, every incident reported. All the big stories covered.
All facts cross-checked. Every figure verified.
Every vote monitored and accounted for.
The numbers tallied, analyzed, and interpreted.
We have invested time and energy in order to bring you a comprehensive elections coverage.
The whole world will be watching us on TV, online, and radio.
Election Command Center. Facts, analysis, results.
Imagine a place where voices matter, where every corner, every street, every community is a platform.
A big bus moving through Accra, carrying conversations, questions, and the pulse of the nation. This is not just another show, it's your voice on the move.
Join us as 3FM Sunrise hits the road, turning ordinary streets into platforms for extraordinary dialogue. Speak freely, listen deeply, and help shape the conversation that drives Ghana forward.
Look out for the bus and tune in exclusively on 3FM 92.7, your urban lifestyle radio.
Welcome back. This is Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Let's do other stories now. A court in Accra has directed the leadership of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association to opt for out-of-court settlement after some members of the association sued the mother union over their conditions of service. The conditions of service implementation for over 145,000 nurses and midwives was suspended indefinitely due to the court injunction. The court injunction was secured by some 200 psychiatric nurses who felt disgruntled about the agreement signed since they were not involved in the signing. President of the association, Perpetual Friampofo, who spoke to the media at the General Nurses National Annual Conference in Accra, said progress is being made in resolving the impasse.
Had a few of our colleagues who have raised concerns and have taken the matter to court because they feel they were not involved in the negotiation. But the law is very clear on all of these things, and so we are trying to address it. I think the last sitting of the court directed that the matter should be settled out of court. So we are trying to sit at the table to discuss the issues and bring the whole issue to an amicable conclusion. So we are working on it. Once we are done with everything, we will announce it, and all of you will get to know what the conclusions are. But of course, when it comes to the conditions of service or the collective agreement itself that is signed, we were able to negotiate what at this time was best. And although we were asking for more, the employer was not ready to give more. But what we were able to get, that has been duly signed off.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the General Nurses Society, Courage Kwame Kuma, says the 5 days conference is to address issues confronting members, including the human resource policy.
Yeah, so basically from the cradle to the grave, in all our communities, in the very remotest area, one of the first people you see is a nurse who would care for you. Oftentimes we only see that, nursing, we say a nursing is calling, nursing is a job of love, but we don't also talk about the value, the economic value of nurses too. So the focus of this conference is to push that discussion, that we can begin to talk about the costs that is involved when people or nurses provide care. And as we also do these things, we are discussing a series of issues that confront us as nurses. Chief among them, issues about study leaves. One of the issues we've come up with in recent times is that study leaves within the public sector or in the health sector in particular.
Let's stay in the courts because the Attorney General Alfred Hammoah Agyemang has called for a reform of laws governing arbitration and the institution of civil claims against the state. Speaking at the conference of the public sector lawyers in Accra, the AG and Minister of Justice cautioned if not managed properly, arbitral claims made against the government from arbitrations can cripple the economy entirely.
The Attorney General said in a space of 4 years alone, arbitral claims against Ghana amounted to over $9 billion. He explained a possible collapse of the country's economy was averted following the defense by his office. The Attorney General cited a domestic arbitral claim which he said upon successful defense saved Ghana 10 trillion Ghana cedis.
In fact, any of these amounts, $7 billion or $950 million, could have collapsed the Ghanaian economy. But the grace of God, this financial claim was recently dismissed in its entirety by the International Arbitral Tribunal. A reflection on the pursuit of these claims against the state leads me to conclude that we must reform the laws governing arbitration and the institution of civil claims against the state, whilst taking a critical look at contracting and contract management on behalf of the state.
Godfrey Hammoah Agyemang further described the phenomenon where government agencies employ their own lawyers as unharmonious. Themed Coordinating Legally for an Efficient and Cohesive Public Service, the Conference of Public Sector Lawyers fielded all the practitioners from the public institutions and the Ghana Bar Association. President of the Bar Association, Ifo Agate, charged lawyers to be vigilant in upholding their integrity.
I therefore urge you to prioritize ethical considerations in your practice and to be very vigilant against conflict of interest situations, unfairness, and any corrupt practice, no matter how negligible it seems, as it may come to haunt you in the future. Your credibility as public servants hinges on your unwavering commitment to these values.
President Akufo-Addo urged lawyers to keenly participate in the conference to enable them improve expertise in the arbitration, which often places a financial burden on the state.
With its focus on arbitration, will advance our goal of fostering collaboration among those who represent the interests of government and its entities, by enhancing our expertise in international commercial arbitration.
On Hot Edition, let's begin from the quarters of the NDC because with 32 days to election, the flag bearer of the NDC is accusing government that it intends to hand over its self-imposed power outage, also known as Dumso, to an incoming NDC administration. Speaking in Agyemang of the Karachi West constituency, John Mahama says government owes close to $2 billion of gas supplied, a major cause of the outages few days to the election. Let's listen to John Mahama.
Enti ni omo yene se omo kremu kakra so mo nim se NDC na eba na dumso a omo de aba no dumso foforo omo de aba yi na omo apia ahye NDC so me no mo ka say enfidia especially ni omo free amanone a omo ye yiram kanea e wo Ghana ha a car and yadiomo a yako $2 billion. And yes, it is almost $2 billion and almost the car. And almost manage kakra January 7th. And this is buying for bar. I say, hey, and your muso munje. And so, Makacha Ghana for say me and Papa. NDC no credit for. Yajia, yabetire mo ne wo ho. Na ye wo mani memma yebetimi asom. Ne asiesie ne aye ne yie. Se ne be ya Ghana for ho beton mo.
Flag bearer of the NDC, John Mahama. Let's go to the Movement for Change, because the leader there, Alan Chemating, has advised electorate to switch from the high level of apathy to championing their efforts in bringing into power the third force that seeks to better the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian. He has been touring some markets in Accra and assured traders of the establishment of a modern market, which includes other facilities like kindergarten and hospital to serve as a one-stop shop for all their health and educational needs. He's also been responding to polls about his performance in the election. We can listen to him now.
About the quality of the message. So what you see on television is not what is going to happen. And then secondly, and also equally importantly, is don't believe in the polls that you are seeing. This is lotto forecasting. They don't mean anything. I mean, to suggest that Alan Chemating will get 1%, it means that you are not even being smart and intelligent about your lotto forecasting. So at first, when I hadn't started, you said that, oh, Alan is 9%, 10%, is going to create a challenge. Then all of a sudden, now that Alan is in the field, he's now at 1%. You know. So please don't take these polls seriously. And again, you have to be on the ground. If you're not on the ground, then you can be fooled by these. If I'm able to pull the crowds, and remember, this is, you see the difference between what is happening now and what people thought was happening before. In primaries, in a political party that is manipulated and massaged, you can't compare that.
Leader of the Movement for Change, Alan Chemating, he says he has a lot of support in the base, and so polls that he's going to get less than 1% of votes cannot be true.
Well, I'm sure he's speaking directly to Global Info Analytics, because yesterday they released a poll, Alan Chemating, based on that latest poll that was conducted between the 28th of October and the 2nd of November. He, based on the persons who were polled, garnered just about 1.23% of the votes.
Nana Kwame Bediako was even going to do better than him.
4%. You know, that is if elections were held within that period. Okay, so I mean, look, polls are polls. You can understand why he has those concerns, but obviously the polls don't cover all the almost 19 million eligible voters in this country. It's an academic exercise that takes a sample size and then works with. But he should also inform his campaign.
Exactly.
We'll see how.
All of this will be finalized on December 7th. By December 8th, we'll see who carries the day. And if we're talking about voting, so there are about 480,000 first-time voters who will be expected to participate in the upcoming general elections in Ghana, according to figures from the Electoral Commission. Over the years, most of these young persons have voted largely based on family influence or political party affiliation. But has that narrative changed? My colleague Ibrahim Abubakar has been engaged in some young persons who are hopeful to join in the election of the next political leadership of the country. Let's listen to him.
I'll not follow others. Just say the one I think will be good for the country and vote for that person based on their policy. Some say they'll bring employment, they'll bring job for us in the country. That's good. So those are the people we are supposed to vote for. With that job, no one would like to stay in the country. So it will be really nice and to decide who becomes the next president of Ghana for the next 4 years. My choice of voting is more working opportunities for we the young people, because right now there are even graduates who have graduated from the university and they are currently unemployed. So the chances of me and senior high school graduates getting out of senior high school, like the chance of me getting a job is very limited.
I'm not going to vote because they are voting for a certain political party. I will vote on the policy that the person is going to implement. If the policy will favor me, I'll vote for the person. But if the policy doesn't favor me, the youth, or as the youth, I won't vote for the person. And even if both parties, or let me see, all the parties, all the political parties in this country doesn't make policy that will favor the youth, I don't think I'll vote because we are the future leaders.
Alfred, so the views of some first-time voters, they are looking at jobs, they are looking at education, they are looking at convenience, and of course, the economy. We'll see how all of these views pan out on December 7 and who these young people are going to vote for, Alfred.
Rightly so, and remain your election command center. Join me and the rest of the team at 10 p.m. on TV3. It's also live on 3FM 92.7 for Ghana tonight at 10 p.m. And as always, we remain your election command center. My name is Alfred Ocansey.
I am Grace Hammoah Agyemang. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of our programs. Good evening.